Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome back to Past and Paradox. I'm John.
And I'm Sarah. And today, yeah, this one's kind of creepy, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like, not in a loud way. It's not scary like jump scares or anything.
It's the quiet kind, the kind where you just sit there after, like, nah, that's not right.
Exactly. Today we're talking about the Mary Celeste.
And if you've never heard of it, just know this. It's one of the weirdest wheel stories ever recorded.
No exaggeration either. This actually happened.
The vibe. All right, so picture this with me for a second.
You're out in the middle of the ocean, like nothing but water around you.
It's 1872, so no phones, no GPS, none of that.
Just you, your crew, and the ship.
And then one day, you spot another ship in the distance.
At first, it's normal. Happens all the time.
But then you get closer.
And something feels off.
No one's waving, no signals, no movement.
And that's when you start thinking like, okay, wait, where is everyone?
Introducing the ship. So the ship we're talking about is called the Mary Celeste.
It left New York in November of 1872.
It was heading to Italy, carrying cargo, mostly industrial alcohol.
And on board was Captain Benjamin Briggs.
His wife, his young daughter.
And a small crew. Experienced people too, not beginners.
That part matters. These weren't random guys who didn't know what they were doing.
Normal start, nothing weird.
Everything about the start of the trip was normal.
Yeah, like boring normal.
Weather was fine.
Ship was in good condition.
No reports of arguments or problems. Like, if you were watching this from the outside, you'd be like, yeah, standard trip.
Enter the other ship.
Now, here's where things start getting weird.
About a month later, another ship called the Di Gratia spots the Mary Celeste.
And right away, something feels off. The way it's moving isn't normal.
It's not like sailing properly.
It's drifting, kind of awkwardly.
And that's when they're like, okay, we gotta check this out.
Approaching the ship, so they get closer.
Still no one on deck.
No one responding.
No sound, no movement.
That's already weird, by the way.
Yeah, like even if something's wrong, someone should be there.
Exactly.
Boarding the Mary Celeste.
So eventually, they decide to board the ship, and this is the moment where everything just flips.
They get on board.
And there's nobody there.
No captain.
No crew.
No passengers.
Not even a single person.
The first reaction. Like imagine that for a second.
Yeah, nah, I don't like that.
You walk onto a ship that should be full of people.
And it's just silent.
That's the kind of silence that feels wrong.
But here's the part that makes it crazy. Okay, but here's where it gets even weirder.
The ship wasn't destroyed.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No massive damage.
Cargo was still there.
Food was still there.
Their stuff, still there.
It didn't look like people ran for their lives.
It looked like they just left.
Wait, why would they leave?
And that's the question, because think about it. You're in the middle of the ocean.
Your ship is still working.
Why would you leave that?
To get into a smaller boat?
That makes no sense unless something really serious is happening.
So now you've got a ship.
Fully stocked.
Still floating.
No clear damage.
And absolutely no people.
And that's just the beginning.
Because when investigators started looking deeper,
the details only got stranger. So once they're actually on the ship, that's when they start looking around more carefully.
Yeah, and at first it's probably just confusion, like, okay, where is everyone hiding?
Right, because your brain doesn't immediately go to, everyone's gone forever.
Exactly. You expect someone to pop out or explain what's going on. But that never happens.
Looking around the ship. So they start checking everything. The deck, the cabins, below deck.
Nothing. Completely empty.
And the more they look, the weirder it gets.
Because things aren't destroyed.
They're just slightly off.
Small details that feel off. Like, for example, the ship wasn't perfectly fine.
Yeah, there was a bit of water in the lower part of the ship.
But not enough to sink it.
Not even close.
It's the kind of thing you'd notice, but not panic over.
And then there's the navigation equipment.
Some of it was missing.
Which is important because that suggests they didn't just vanish randomly.
They took certain things with them.
Which means they chose to leave.
The lifeboat.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really stands out.
Because now it's not just they disappeared.
It's they left the ship.
So now you've got to ask, what makes an experienced captain leave a ship like that?
Especially Captain Briggs. Everything we know about him, he was careful.
Not reckless.
Not the type to panic for no reason.
And he had his family with him.
Yeah, that changes everything.
You're not making risky decisions like that unless you really believe you have no other choice.
The logbook. One of the most important clues was the logbook.
Basically a record of the ship's journey,
The last entry showed they were still pretty far from where the ship was eventually found.
which means the ship kept drifting for a while after they left.
So whatever happened, happened earlier.
And then the ship just kept going on its own.
That part always gets me.
Yeah, same.
Like, imagine making a decision to leave your ship,
In the middle of the ocean.
and then that ship just keeps sailing without you.
That's actually kind of haunting.
And here's another thing. There were no signs of violence,
No blood, no damage from a fight,
no signs of piracy.
nothing stolen.
That rules out a lot of the obvious explanations.
So now the questions start.
So now investigators are basically left with a bunch of clues.
But none of them fully explain what happened,
It's like each detail gives you part of the story.
but not enough to finish it.
One weird possibility.
One idea people started thinking about was the cargo,
Yeah, the industrial alcohol.
because that stuff can give off fumes.
And if you're on a wooden ship in the 1800s,
That could be dangerous,
so the theory is maybe they thought the ship was about to explode.
which would explain leaving quickly.
But here's the problem.
There was no explosion.
No burn marks, nothing to show that actually happened.
So, why leave?
So now you're stuck again because something clearly scared them enough to leave.
But not enough evidence was left behind to explain what it was.
The decision moment.
And that moment, the decision to leave, that's the core of the mystery.
Yeah, like what did they see?
What did they hear?
What made them go, we need to get off this ship right now?
Because whatever it was,
It was convincing.
ending transition. And here's where it gets even more complicated.
Because once people started investigating,
The theories didn't get clearer.
they got divided.
Some made sense at first,
And then fell apart when you looked closer.
and others sounded unlikely.
But couldn't be fully ruled out either. So once investigators really started digging into this,
That's when things stopped being just confusing and started getting messy.
yeah, because instead of one clear explanation, you suddenly have a bunch of theories.
And none of them fully work.
First theory, they panicked into leaving.
Right, not because the ship was sinking, but because they thought something worse was about to happen.
That's where the cargo theory comes back in.
The alcohol barrels.
Some of them may have been leaking fumes.
And in a closed space, that could feel dangerous.
So the idea is maybe they smelled something or heard something and thought,
Yeah, this ship's about to blow.
exactly.
And if you truly believe that, leaving makes sense.
It does, especially if you're trying to protect your family.
But here's the issue.
There's always an issue.
There's no evidence of an explosion, no burn marks, nothing like that.
So even if they were scared, the danger wasn't actually real.
Second theory, weather.
Yeah, like maybe rough seas or a sudden storm.
Something that made the ship feel unstable,
But again, the ship was still in decent condition when it was found.
which doesn't match a full-on panic situation.
Like, if it was that bad, you'd expect more damage.
Third theory, something went wrong mid-decision.
Yeah, there's this middle ground idea.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. That maybe they didn't plan to fully abandon the ship,
Right, maybe they lowered the lifeboat temporarily,
like tie it to the ship with a rope.
just to stay at a safe distance for a bit.
And then something went wrong.
The rope snaps or gets cut.
And suddenly, they can't get back.
That actually feels realistic.
Yeah, like not a bad decision, just a bad outcome.
But again, there's no proof that's what happened.
It just fits better than some of the other ideas.
Theories that don't really hold up. Now, of course, people have suggested more extreme theories too.
Like piracy,
But nothing was stolen.
which kind of shuts that down.
Then there's mutiny.
Crew turning against the captain.
But there's no signs of a fight.
No damage, no struggle.
And then, yeah, people even went into stuff like sea monsters and supernatural explanations.
Which, I mean,
Yeah, we're not going there.
probably not the strongest theory,
What makes this so frustrating is that every theory almost works,
but not completely.
like the ship being in good condition,
Or the supplies being untouched.
or the fact that they left at all.
It's like trying to finish a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah, you can see part of the picture, never the full thing.
The human side.
Yeah, this wasn't just a random crew.
There was a family on board.
A captain who had a reputation for being responsible.
So whatever happened, it wasn't careless.
It wasn't random.
It was a decision.
A serious one.
The big question again.
And we keep coming back to the same thing.
What made them leave?
What was so convincing?
That staying on the ship felt like the worst option.
Because from everything we can see,
They were safer on the ship.
and that's what makes this story stick.
Yeah, it's not just what happened.
It's what doesn't make sense.
No clear danger,
No clear explanation.
just a moment where everything changes.
And no one's there to explain why.
We're still left with the same questions. So after all the investigations, all the reports, all the theories,
Nothing was ever confirmed.
no final answer.
No clear explanation.
The investigation ends, but not really. Authorities looked into everything they could.
They questioned the crew of the Dea Gracia.
They checked for fraud, foul play, anything suspicious.
At one point, people even thought maybe the whole thing was staged.
Yeah, like insurance fraud or something. But that didn't hold up either. There just wasn't enough evidence pointing in any one direction.
And eventually, the case just kind of faded.
Not solved.
Just left behind.
What makes it stay?
But the story didn't disappear.
Yeah, it stuck around.
People kept coming back to it.
Because it doesn't feel finished.
There's no ending where everything gets explained.
No moment where someone goes, this is exactly what happened.
Just a ship
Found in the middle of the ocean.
with no one on it.
Why it feels different.
I think what makes this one different is how quiet it is.
Yeah,
There's no chaos to point at,
no obvious mistake.
no clear villain.
It's just a decision,
A moment where something made sense to them,
but doesn't make sense to us.
and I think that's what gets people.
Yeah, because you try to put yourself in that situation,
You try to think, what would I do?
and every time you come back to the same thing,
You probably wouldn't leave the ship.
unless something made you believe you had to. Time passing,
It's been over 100 years.
and still no answers.
No confirmed sighting of what happened after they left.
No real evidence of where they went,
Just theories.
and guesses.
And that one empty ship.
Final reflection. Some mysteries get solved over time,
New evidence, new technology.
but this one never really moved forward.
It just stayed exactly where it was.
And maybe that's why people still talk about it.
Yeah, because it feels incomplete.
So, here we are.
Still asking the same questions.
What really happened on the Mary Celeste?
Why did they leave?
And what happened after that moment? All right, we want to hear from you on this one. Yeah, for real. What do you think happened?
Do you think they panicked and made the wrong call?
Or do you think there was something they experienced that we just don't understand?
Let us know in the comments.
We'll be reading them.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.